To induct our final act into the 2007 Aria Hall of Fame, we are honoured with the lead singer and songwriter of one of this country's most successful international bands. He's currently in the US, and gee, I hope he's doing some kind of work, and prior to leaving, proudly recorded this induction speech. Please give it up for Silverchair's Daniel Johns.
I hate public speaking. I'm not good at it, and anyone who's watched me try to speak between songs at our own shows knows that I'm not kidding. Fortunately for all of us, we're touring America throughout July, so I've got good excuse to record this on videotape. I didn't even give a speech at my own wedding, so I'd be lying if I said it was a pleasure to be doing this. It's not, but it's certainly a privilege. I feel honoured and proud to have been asked to induct Radio Birdman into the Aria Hall of Fame because they are a truly seminal Australian band. I'm sitting in what was once Trafalgar Studios. Radio Birdman recorded all their early stuff in this room. Also, one of Australia's first truly independent labels was started here in order to release their recordings. These days, this place is owned by a church. But as far as lots of people are concerned, it became something like sacred ground about 30 years ago. I was born in 1979, a year after Birdman split. But as a kid growing up around the beaches in Newcastle, they were still very relevant and real to my friends and I. Their classic Aloha Stephen Dano was one of the first songs Ben, Chris and I learnt to play together when we were still jamming in a garage, way before we began our own musical journey. And we weren't the only ones. Radio Birdman's influence went beyond their no-holds-barred music. They were a cult, a subculture that was now linked loosely to the surfing and skating communities. The band's influence looms large over 3 generations of Australian music. Regardless of musical style, any artist who thinks of themselves as underground or independent or alternative is walking in the footsteps of Radio Birdman. Foundation members Dennis Tech and Rob Younger formed the group in Sydney in 1974. They wanted a band that would break all the rules, and along with original members Pip Hoyle, Ron Keeley and Carl St. John Rourke, plus members Chris Jones, Warwick Gilbert and Chris Klondike Mazuak, that's exactly what they did. They broke the rules through their process of making and distributing records, and they broke the rules through the attitude they brought to making music. They created art from true passion with minimal form or structure, showing anything was possible. Their artistic orientation and do-it-yourself spirit inspired the indie scene of the 1980s, which in turn inspired the generation of so-called Triple J bands in the 90s and beyond. When my group and Tim Rogers covered the Birdman anthem New Race at the 1995 Aria Awards, I knew bands like ours were standing on the shoulders of giants. Doing New Race instead of one of our own songs was our way of acknowledging that fact, and it was definitely a lot more fun than doing a speech. Radio Birdman's approach to making music has created a legacy, and that is why they're being honoured tonight, and that is why I am proud to be here. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to stop talking and roll the video.
Radio Birdman came together in 1974. The genesis was Australian singer Rob Younger and US-born guitarist Dennis Tech.
Between the two of us, we had a mutual love of the Stooges music and the Stones and bands like the MC5.
We were playing what we thought of was aggressive rock and roll. We played hard and with a lot of attitude.
In terms of labels such as punk, well, in fact, we were what we were. If someone wants to call us punk, that's their right.
It was a rebellion. You know, you had Disco Duck and Saturday Night Fever, and a lot of people just hated that.
Often the audiences don't understand the difference between aggression and high energy.
Even before the advent of punk, Radio Birdman had heaps of trouble convincing venue owners to give them gigs.
I think they found us our music sort of antisocial. So we got banned from a lot of places.
Finally, they found the Oxford Tavern in Taylor Square in Sydney. They called it the Oxford Funhouse. Soon, a Birdman culture developed.
Everyone let themselves go. I hadn't seen it like that before. used to say we wanted gigs to be events. The audience just responded in kind. I mean, we put out.
Initially, it was nonviolent. I think when the punk movement became a cultural thing and a fashion thing, then violence sort of crept into it.
At Sydney's Trafalgar Studios, they recorded the Burn My Eye EP in 1976. It brought them to the attention of a wider audience because of play on Double J radio.
It's a good feeling to hear your song on the radio.
Then in 77 came the legendary Radio's Appear.
We were still hated, and so we still had something to sort of, rail against.
The band remained an uncompromising underground act with their menacing image and their controversial symbol.
People quite readily drew, comparisons with the Nazis, invariably.
After successful gigs interstate, in mid-1977, with the Funhouse starting to get out of control, Radio Birdman took a 6-month break, then came back for their most famous Sydney shows.
We did 2 shows within a month, I think, at Paddo Town Hall, and both were attended by over 1,000 people. We turned people away. It was unbelievable to us. They were wild gigs.
Signed to Sire Records, in 1978, the band headed for the UK and Europe.
We didn't fit in with the mold in England. The people that came to the shows were very fashion conscious, and we didn't look like punks.
While they were there, they went to Wales to record their second album, Living Eyes, which was released in 1981, long after they split in 78.
So that's sort of where it went. It went overseas and split up. Well, we split up because of just personal differences, I think. Being together in the van of haters, we dubbed it, we just didn't get along terribly well. And that was pretty much it. The history validates these things. Like a name that keeps getting thrown up must have something. There must have been something there.
By the power vested in me and with the words "Yeah, Hup," I do hereby officially induct into the Aria Hall of Fame the one and only Radio Birdman.
Earlier this evening, we were checking the sound in here and having a lot of problems. And we were backstage, and I was talking to our keyboard player, Pip Hoyle, and we were discussing who was going to have to do this acceptance monologue. And I was trying to get him to do it, and he was trying to get me to do it. And I said, well, it's the Australian Music Hall of Fame, so you need to be doing it. And he said, well, you're an Australian, you've got the passport. And I said, yeah, but you sound like one. So he was going to do it, but terribly, unfortunately, he got called home tonight on a family crisis of very profound nature. So he's not here, but we're going to soldier on without him and accept this on his behalf as well, and we'll try to honor Pip in the process because he's having a hard time, and our heart is with him tonight. We never had a hit record. In fact, our manager used to sleep on a mattress supported by hundreds of unsold CDs. And I don't know if Aria knows that, but we never thought we'd be in a position to be up here accepting this. So thank you to Aria. Thank you to our families who had to put up with all of this, and our friends and our supporters who stuck with us. Well, it was never unfashionable. In fact, it was always hip to support us, but it was not always safe. And thanks very much to Charles Fisher and Michael McMartin, who were brave enough to record us and allow us into their studio and come up with a way to release our music when it couldn't be released, through normal channels at all. It was just completely unacceptable. And finally, thank you to Jules Normington, our first manager and good friend, and our longtime, very special friend and current manager, Mr. John Needham. Thanks very much.